participants. Thank you all and welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good day to everybody who is joining our call. We just have to test, I'm just gonna acknowledge a few speakers that are connecting, and then we'll be starting very soon. I see that Mayor Lisa Helps from Victoria, that you are connected. Can we just check your audio and perhaps your camera, if it's on, please? Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Great. Yes, we can hear and see you very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ambassador Francisco Duarte Lopez, can we test your audio, please, sir?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Are you listening to me?
Good morning, Ambassador. Loud and clear. Thank you very much. Obrigada. Let me just, I see Ms. Joana Pinto Balsemão, can we test your audio?
Hello, everyone.
Hello, good morning. We can hear you very well. Great. Let me just see if I've, there's only one more for me to acknowledge. 1, 2. Let's see. So just give us 1 more minute. There is one speaker that I'm trying to identify, and we will be starting in 1 minute. Just 1 second. Okay, I suggest that we start the call. We will still try to identify one of the speakers in case he's finding any issues to connect. Colleagues, if you identify Professor Misheni Intiba from Kenya, please do let us know him, even on the attendees, in case he has connected with an attendee link. So, but let's kickstart the call. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good day to everybody. Welcome to the webinar, Keeping the Momentum for Ocean Action, Local and Regional Governments Participation and Engagement. This event is organized by UNDESA, UCLG, the UN Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments, and UN and GLS. My name is Nayara Costa. I'm a Senior Sustainable Development Officer at the Division for Sustainable Development Goals at UNDESA, and I'm honored to be one of your moderators of this session. Before we begin, I would like to provide some housekeeping announcements, and perhaps we can go to the next slide, please. The call is being recorded, and the link to the recording as well as the PowerPoint presentation will be shared soon and posted at our website. It is also being live streamed to YouTube. You can also copy the link to the YouTube in case you want to share in your social media as well. With many thanks to UCLG and the Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments, this call includes simultaneous interpretation to English, Spanish, and French. So I will invite you to take a moment to check. You will see this signal of interpretation on your screen, and you can move through the channels in case you need interpretation, as some of the speakers will be delivering their presentation in French or Spanish. The participants, we are inviting you to use the chat box and the Q&A to make your comments, to make questions, or to make recommendations and suggestions. Please make sure that you indicate your name, your organization, your city, your country when you are putting your comments over there. We'll be monitoring that. For the panelists, we also invite you to keep an eye on the Q&A in case there are questions directed to you that you can already reply during the webinar. And also, if you want to tweet, you can use the hashtag #SaveOurOcean and tag @SustDev, which is our account. So we can move to the next slide, please. And we shall now start with the opening remarks. And without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Alex Trepokov, Officer in Charge of the Division for Sustainable Development Goals, UNDESA, for some introductory remarks. And Mr. Trepokov will also be inviting our high-level speakers from this session. Mr. Trepokov, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nayara. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Distinguished participants, dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, I am very pleased to welcome all participants to this webinar, which is the fourth one in our webinar series on keeping the momentum for ocean action. The three previous webinars have targeted youth, the private sector, and stakeholders in Asia Pacific. Today, we will focus on mobilizing local and regional governments towards ocean action in the lead up to the 2020 United Nations Ocean Conference. In this connection, I wish to thank the United Cities and Local Governments, UCLG, and the Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments for their great partnerships in co-hosting today's event. I also want to acknowledge the collaboration of the United Nations Non-Governmental Liaison Service, UN and NGLS. Although the General Assembly decided to postpone the 2020 Ocean Conference due to the COVID-19 crisis, the preparatory process is continuing strong under the able leadership of the co-hosts of the conference, Kenya and Portugal. We are honored that high-level officials from both countries have joined today's event. We are also delighted to have with us the President of UCLG and the United Nations Secretary General Special Envoy for the Ocean. Dear colleagues, we are meeting at a time of unprecedented challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a global crisis with devastating socioeconomic effects that cloud our prospects for the future. At the same time, the current crisis has highlighted the importance of the 2030 Agenda as our roadmap to sustainable development, including Sustainable Development Goal 14 on the conservation and sustainable use of the oceans, seas, and marine resources. It has also underscored the relevance and timeliness of the overarching theme of the UN Ocean Conference, scaling up ocean action based on science and innovation for the implementation of Goal 14, stock-taking, partnerships, and solutions. Local and regional authorities have a prominent role to play in this regard. Dear colleagues, as you know from the program, following the opening remarks by the co-hosts and the keynote address by the Special Envoy, today's webinar will feature two panels, where we will hear from local and regional government representatives and other stakeholders their views on how to strengthen the subnational contribution to the implementation of SDG 14, including efforts to build back better from COVID-19, as well as recommendations on how to engage this sector in the lead up to the UN Ocean Conference. Without further ado, I would now like to invite Ambassador Francisco Duarte Lopes, Permanent Representative of Portugal to the United Nations, to deliver his opening remarks. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Director Trepalkov, Professor Ntiba, Mayor Mohamed Boudra, Special Envoy Peter Thompson, and all participating in this webinar. I would like to first thank colleagues from UN DESA for organizing this webinar and commend all those present today for joining the global efforts in keeping the momentum towards ambition and ambitious ocean action. I must say I am deeply encouraged by the level of engagement in this series of webinars. As you just said, Mr. Trepalkov, this is the fourth webinar organized by DESA over the couple of months. And always with a strong mobilization of stakeholders, expressing a multitude of voices that have something important to say on the ocean challenges and on ocean action. This is true with respect to international and regional organizations, to youth, the private sector, civil society, and of course, local and regional governments. All have a crucial role to play in dealing with the implementation of Goal 14 of the SDGs. Local and regional governments are often at the forefront of dealing with impacts such as sea level rise, marine pollution, coastal ecosystems, and its degradation. But they are also key agents of change by putting in place policies that addresses those very challenges and carve out a more sustainable path. Local and regional governments have also the extraordinary important task of engaging citizens, mobilizing and organizing communities. All in all, harnessing the energy and resources and turn them into an integrated and coherent action plan. So a special word of salute to the representatives of local and regional governments participating today, including the City Councillor from Cascais, a Portuguese municipality that has cooperated closely, very closely, with the governments of Portugal and Kenya, and with UNDESA and the Special Envoy in preparing for the UN Ocean Conference. Portugal and Kenya pledged since day one to make sure the UN Ocean Conference will be as inclusive as possible by bringing together all relevant stakeholders. Because we are convinced that national governments alone will not be able to win this battle. Only by forging wide-ranging partnerships can we really have a chance of fully implementing Goal 14. For us, the UN Ocean Conference is a unique platform offering a common framework within which different stakeholders can come together and work together with a common goal, making the best out of their different strengths and their different abilities. While the pandemic and the public health concerns have made it inevitable to postpone the UN Ocean Conference, until conditions allow it to take place, Portugal and Kenya commitment to co-host the conference remains, of course, unchanged. And because this commitment remains the same, so does our goal to make this conference a drive of change, and so does our need to prepare as best as possible for the conference in order to be able to deliver when we get to Lisbon. We count on all of you ahead of the upcoming UN Ocean Conference and beyond. Thank you very much, Alex.
Obrigado, Ambassador. Thank you very much. I would now like to give the floor to Professor Michini Ntiba, Principal Secretary for Fisheries and the Blue Economy of Kenya. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. I'm late because I was out of Nairobi. I've just come from Embu County around Mount Kenya, where we were planting trees as part of our aim to meet the target of 10% forest cover in Kenya. And that's why I've come late. I think for us in Kenya, I think is to indicate that we are happy that we still maintain the momentum of hoping that COVID will allow us to host the conference that we are waiting for, that we keep preparing, and that at some point, I hope we will get the way forward for this. It is a very important conference, this one, and particularly for me, noting that if we are going to make ocean economy useful to the human race moving forward, the need for reliable data, the need for scientific data still remains key, and that the conference was going to give us a chance to launch the UN Decade for Ocean Science. So for me, I think this still remains key, and we should be able to think that this is the way forward. I have no doubt that we are going to host this conference, and to ask everybody to continue planning, to continue being hopeful that the COVID impacts and issues won't subside soon, so that we can be able to move forward on this. I think I'm working with the Portugal Embassy in Nairobi. We have a number of things we are doing together, and that I think we remain very hopeful that this is going to happen. So I encourage everybody that we don't lose hope that this is going to be with us moving forward. Thank you very much.
I thank you, Professor, for your opening remarks. Now it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Mohammed Boudra, President of the United Cities and Local Governments, UCLG, to deliver his opening remarks. Dr. Boudra, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, distingués ambassadeurs et représentants auprès des Nations Unies, professeurs, mesdames et messieurs les maires, gouverneurs, chers membres des Nations Unies, chers membres de la Taskforce, du secrétariat général de CGLU. Nous avons vécu ensemble une crise importante qu'est la pandémie Covid-19. Et pour nous, collectivités locales et régionales, nous pensons que malgré les malheurs dont on a souffert, c'est une opportunité. C'est une opportunité, une deuxième chance que la vie nous donne pour repartir de nouveau et changer notre cap de navigation de toute l'humanité. C'est une deuxième chance que la vie nous donne pour mieux repartir. Et une des choses auxquelles nous devons faire plus d'attention, c'est justement sauvegarder notre planète, sauvegarder les océans et lutter contre toutes les maladies qui peuvent atteindre notre planète, à savoir la pollution, la déforestation, lutter contre le changement climatique, préserver notre biodiversité terrestre et marine, l'érosion, la pêche non contrôlée, etc., etc. Plusieurs actions que nous avons fait mal dans le passé. C'est une occasion pour nous rattraper et pour assurer une meilleure vie sur cette planète. Il y a de cela 2 semaines à peine, nous fêtons la Journée mondiale des océans. Reconnaissant que les océans recouvrent 70% de la superficie de notre planète, il semble invraisemblable que nous oublions aussi souvent l'importance que cette ressource occupe dans notre vie et que nous considérions que cette responsabilité incombe à celles et ceux qui vivent sur les côtes. Les océans contiennent une partie fondamentale de la vie de la planète entière. D'un point de vue historique, les océans nous ont unis bien plus qu'ils ne nous sont séparés. Souvenons-nous que le droit maritime reconnaît depuis fort longtemps les routes et les ressources océaniques comme un bien commun mondial qui nécessite l'attention et la coordination de tous les acteurs. Il est de notre devoir de trouver des engagements mondiaux appropriés pour sauvegarder les droits des générations futures et garantir la durabilité de la vie sur Terre. Et même si cela ne paraît pas toujours évident, la responsabilité des gouvernements locaux et régionaux à ce sujet est essentielle. À mon avis, la deuxième chance dont je parle pour repartir, un nouveau départ, il doit être l'œuvre d'une alliance entre les collectivités locales et régionales et les Nations Unies. Je le dis toujours et nous avons souligné dans notre décalogue des recommandations de CGLU. C'est une alliance importante parce qu'elle est efficace, elle est proche des citoyens. En cette ère urbaine, l'activité humaine ajoute une pression sur les océans. Le tourisme, l'industrie, sur nos ressources, sur les mers, sur les ressources maritimes. Je tiens à vous rappeler ici l'avenir incertain de milliers de villes côtières qui se verront affectées par l'augmentation du niveau de la mer dans tout le monde. et en particulier dans les petits États insulaires en développement. C'est notre responsabilité des collectivités locaux et régionaux de défendre la survie de ces États, de ces populations. Le droit à des océans et des mers durables et sains est donc non seulement un droit humain, mais aussi la clé de la survie de notre planète. Les océans sont l'origine de la vie et l'avenir de la vie aussi. En tant que collectif local et régional, nous savons que nous devons réaliser des efforts supplémentaires pour maintenir le continent urbain-rural. Et de la même façon que nous parlons des liens entre zones rurales et urbaines, nous devons également reconnaître l'importance d'établir des liens entre le monde urbain et les océans. Nous devons reconnaître que les gouvernements locaux ont une voix et un vote sur la question du soin à apporter à nos mers. Notre place dans la prise des décisions est primordiale dans la mesure où protéger les océans, les ressources maritimes et les moyens de subsistance, cela signifie protéger nos communautés, nos populations, qui voient dans nos eaux un moyen d'existence et un élément clé de leur bien-être. Notre collectif des gouvernements locaux et régionaux est déterminé à faire croître l'ambition à l'égard de la réponse à apporter à l'urgence climatique, ce qui inclut bien sûr la conservation de nos océans et de nos mers et réaliser les objectifs de développement durable. Cependant, nous ne pouvons pas agir seuls. Les gouvernements locaux et régionaux doivent être soutenus pour créer des modèles de gestion durable. Pour ce faire, il faut accompagner la prestation des services locaux essentiels tels que l'eau, l'assainissement, la gestion des résidus par le biais des modèles d'économie circulaire et bleue, en instaurant des zones protégées et encourageant l'écotourisme ou la pêche durable. Les gouvernements à tous les niveaux peuvent et doivent interagir pour contribuer ainsi à améliorer la cohésion territoriale et réduire la pollution marine, la perte d'habitat et de la biodiversité. Soucieuses et soucieux du futur de l'humanité, nous défendons l'idée et la nécessité d'un système multilatéral solide qui considère la protection des océans et des mers comme l'axe fondamental sur lequel repose un pacte mondial pour la nature. En consonance avec les débats pour un nouveau cadre mondial de la biodiversité, nous, gouvernements locaux et régionaux, leurs associations, leurs réseaux, réunis au sein de la Global Taskforce, reconnaissons que la protection de nos océans est fondamentale pour lutter ensemble pour la conservation des biens communs et des ressources naturelles. Face aux défis économiques, sociaux et environnementaux du monde, je souhaitais terminer en rappelant que le cadre réellement transformateur qu'offrent les agendas mondiaux nous permettra de parvenir à un monde plus durable, un monde qui protège nos moyens d'existence, un monde enfin qui reconnaît que les sacrifices réalisés aujourd'hui permettront aux prochaines générations de vivre dignement. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Dr Boudra, pour votre intervention très importante. Allow me now to invite Ambassador Peter Thompson, the United Nations Secretary General's Special Envoy for the Ocean, to deliver his keynote address. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. All courtesies observed and greetings to you all as we gather here in cyberspace. And I hope that wherever and whatever your circumstances, that you and your families are safe and well. I trust that everybody is finding it in their hearts to exercise the best of human traits, sharing, empathy, and of kindness to our fellows and those who are suffering the most in our communities as a consequence of this pandemic. I was very pleased to see my friend, the professor, had just come back from planting trees on the slopes of Mount Kenya. You know, I was congratulating my Prime Minister the other day for his efforts on the shores of my hometown in Fiji of planting mangroves. And this is such important work that people are doing around the world. Also to my Latin American friends there, I want to tell you they're in today, ambassador to Cuba. So on those informal notes, friends and colleagues, I want to thank everybody in UNDESA, along with the United Cities and local governments, and the Global Task Force of local and regional governments, and of course the UN Non-Governmental Liaison Service for organizing today's webinar. As you know, we've gathered today with a view to being part of the global movement to maintain the momentum of ocean action in support of the implementation of SDG 14, the ocean goal that sets out to conserve and sustainably use the ocean's resources. In particular, we'll be discussing how in the lead up to the UN Ocean Conference, we can strengthen the engagement and contribution of local and regional governments to SDG 14's implementation. You know, it's true that the super year for the ocean has been disrupted by the coronavirus pandemic. And all the great environmental conferences planned for 2020 for biodiversity, for climate crisis, and for the ocean have been postponed. But no more than that, the conferences will be held as soon as conditions allow, and we'll gather at them in real and virtual format to deliberate. For we remain resolutely committed to the multilateral process aimed at securing a sustainable way of life on this planet. In the meantime, we have a responsibility to maintain the momentum and where required, endeavor to meet the targets set by international agreement. I'm pleased to report to you that the preparations for the UN Ocean Conference continue on a step-by-step basis, with dates to be announced in due course as to when the conference will be held. As you've heard already this morning, the location of the conference is still going to be in the beautiful harbor city of Lisbon. And the co-hosts, Portugal and Kenya, as you've heard, are resolute in their determination to hold a vibrant conference that will break new ground for the innovation and science required to successfully implement SDG 14. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, gathered in virtual proximity to discuss how we can best maintain the momentum for ocean action. Welcome everyone to this webinar, and I trust you'll find it to be a useful part of your working week. I'm very interested to learn from you today as to what is being done in relation to SDG 14's implementation in your areas of responsibility, whether it is the problems you're encountering or the solutions you are devising. So much of what we need to do to achieve the future we want comes down to the policies and programs and projects that are being applied at the regional and local levels around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that governments and corporations are facing very difficult decisions at this time of planning and managing the economic recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. We must face the fact that prolonged global economic slowdown runs the associated risk of reducing commitment to climate action, and this cannot be allowed to happen. The one common enemy of biodiversity, climate change, the health of the ocean, and thereby the security of humanity is the ever-escalating levels of anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. We cannot have a healthy planet without a healthy ocean, and currently the ocean's health is in steady decline as a result of those greenhouse gas emissions. The question we all have to ask ourselves is, what are we doing to get to net zero carbon by 2050? This is not an idle question. The answer directly affects the well-being or otherwise of our children and grandchildren. And so, while still in the grip of this paralyzing pandemic, we should all be examining with great care the routes of economic recovery upon which we will soon be embarking. I firmly believe it is at this time that our voices should be insistently heard in favor of the high road to a clean green transition, a road I like to call the blue-green recovery road. I know it's hard for decision makers and breadwinners to think long-term when the short-term exigencies of crisis and supply management are priority. But this is the time when decisions on massive financial commitments are in train. And before the seal is set upon them, we have to ensure that the consequences of taking a low road back to the global warming, fossil fuel dependent, plastic polluting world that we knew are understood and avoided. In the name of our children and grandchildren, I urge national governments, regional organizations, local governments, city authorities, development banks and international agencies, and the private sector to think of our long-term responsibilities and invest now in clean, blue-green infrastructure for a better future for people and planet. Again, we must ask ourselves, what are we doing to make this a reality? Ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to think about the 6 principles that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres laid down in his Earth Day address this year. Principles that included ending fossil fuel subsidies, polluters being made to pay for their pollution, and the investment of public funds into a future of sustainable projects that help the environment and the climate. All of this means massive new jobs for everyone. The self-interest of our species demands that unprecedented reductions in anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions around the world shape the recovery roads ahead. Only then will we reverse the decline of the ocean's health and best secure our own. We've always known that humans and nature are part of one connected system, with nature providing us our water, air, medicine, food, and so many other benefits. SDG 14 sets out to safeguard that connected system by conserving and sustainably using the ocean's resources. So I look forward to hearing from today's discussions about how local and regional governments are working to achieve the 10 targets of SDG 14. How, for example, are you working with the communities within your jurisdictions to establish and manage effective marine protected areas? How are you better managing your coastal ecosystems? How are you controlling illegal fishing and assisting artisanal fishers? And of course, how are you stemming the flow of, to the ocean of land-based pollution, especially the curse of single-use plastic? To conclude my remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I remind that the theme of the UN Ocean Conference rests on science and innovation. To achieve the targets of SDG 14, the role of science and innovation is inescapable. We are already seeing positive results from their application in everything from offshore renewable energy to the greening of shipping. Innovation will allow us to move from linear exploitation of finite planetary resources into an era of circular economies, sustainable food systems, and resilient cities. And it will lead us to better safeguarding of the biodiversity of nature upon which our species ultimately depends. Ladies and gentlemen, now more than ever, it's time for us to double down on ocean action. The online registry of voluntary commitments for Ocean Act, which was created in the lead up to the 2017 UN Ocean Conference, remains open. And there are more than 1,600 voluntary commitments registered on the website from both governments and other stakeholders. So I urge you today to be part of this drive and register your commitments to ocean action upon the register. I thank you for your attention, and I really look forward to a stimulating exchange of ideas during this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your inspiring address. And now I would like to turn the floor over to Ms. Nayara Costa, Senior Sustainable Development Officer in the Division for Sustainable Development Goals, who will moderate the first panel discussion on mobilizing local and regional governments towards ocean action, showcasing local challenges and forward-looking perspective. Nayara, back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Trepokov. So we are starting now the first panel, as Mr. Trepokov has just mentioned. We have 4 speakers on this panel who will be addressing a few key questions that will be shown on this slide. And I would kindly ask all speakers to keep to the 5 minutes limit, as we have a full agenda today. I will be also showing you a sign indicating when your time is up, when you have 1 minute left, so you can wrap up your presentation. So without further ado, let me start with our first speaker. I would like to invite Dr. Leo Brewster, Director of the Coastal Zone Management Unit of the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy of Barbados, to deliver his remarks. Dr. Brewster, please, you do have the floor. Thank you.
Good morning to everybody, and thank you for inviting me to take part in this webinar session. I'm here on behalf of my Minister Kirk Humphrey, Minister of Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy in Barbados, and well, I received this at late notice, so I'm going to be rather short. I think that as part of the whole ocean action approach to looking at the rollout for community involvement, especially in Barbados, we are now still very young in this process because our ministry was only established 2 years ago. And we've been trying to get our feet on the ground to have greater interaction at the community level. My minister is a very active individual in terms of social interaction and participation at all levels. And he's always trying to ensure that there's public feedback on the activities that we are looking to perform. In that respect, I think the recognition of the need for community buy-in and trust in these matters is something that has to be ingrained across all activities. And we are trying to ensure that as a new ministry, we can have those sort of activities recognized as being implementable. So I think that we will be trying, as part of this process, especially in a post-COVID-19 environment where our whole country was shut down for, in essence, almost 8-10 weeks. And we are now only starting to now go through the process of reopening. We now have to be more proactive in terms of our approach to recognize how the communities will be becoming more involved in their activities for addressing what we call the Big Blue. Because we as the Coastal Zone Management Unit, have always looked at coastal development and activities on an island system scale. So therefore we've looked from the ocean to the land, but now we're changing our focus to look from the land to the Big Blue, because we obviously have responsibility for a large economic zone that now has to be addressed. And there's a lot greater need in Barbados at this stage for a lot more consultative approaches in terms of how that space will be managed. As I said, I'm going to try to be short because, you know, I'm going to allow opportunity later on for feedback and follow on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brewster. Really appreciate it. Next, it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Emil Dardak, Vice Governor of East Java, Indonesia. Vice Governor Dardak, please, you do have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I would like to first extend my appreciation to UNDESA for organizing this conference, and to Mr. Alex Trepalkov from UNDESA. Just going directly, I would like to structure my short intervention by first explaining the context of ocean in East Java, and then I will talk about zoning, sustainable fishery, coral reefs, and ocean environment, and then a bit about the initiative from USELG aspect on closing the loop. So East Java is the second largest province in terms of economy. It contributes 1/6 of Indonesia's economy, and it has 40 million population. So it's the second largest province in terms of both population and economy in Indonesia. And it has 3,498 kilometers of coastal line with 427 islands. The total area of the ocean is 54,000, which is larger than the land area of East Java itself. So SDG 14 is at the heart of our province. And therefore, we have issued a legislation, number 1, 2018, and that legislation specifically covers the zoning of coastal areas and small islands. As I said earlier, there's 427 islands. So we want to ensure there's proper zoning for tourism, seaport, mining, fishery, industry, energy, and airport. So the various use of ocean is governed so that we can ensure there is harmony and there is sustainability in the use of the ocean area. Now we go into sustainable fishery. We are honored that last year we were the host of the Southeast Asian Fisheries Development Center Council meeting, the 51st Council meeting, which focuses on sustainable fishery. We talk about combating illegal unreported fishing, IUU fishing, and then a regional plan of action for the management of fishing capacity. And also, East Java was awarded by the national government for its innovation in fish apartment. It's a bit interesting. It's a restocking of fish by using sort of what we call as a fish apartment to recover the ecosystem. One of our environmental activists was given a national award as well for recovering coastal ecosystem in the southern part of our Malang municipality by promoting replanting of mangrove, combating deforestation, because it's an upstream downstream continuation, and putting quota on visitors to the island and to the beach tourism. So tourism can be detrimental when it increases the volume of plastic waste being generated. In terms of coral reef as well, this is a part of that integrated plan. Now I'd like to talk about plastic waste. Because as we know that millions of tons of plastic waste is polluting our river, our ocean. But it's a continuous thing. It starts from the river all to the ocean. Some people say it's 50 kilometers of population living within the coast would be polluting the oceans. And therefore, out of 11 key performance indicators, the commitment of our provincial, of the governor and myself, one of that is on environmental sustainability of our waters. And we plan to reduce plastic waste by 30% in 2025 in our regional strategic policy. And the governor has issued a specific decree to promoting reduction of plastic waste among businesses. And we want to reduce, we have 17,000 tons of waste per day, 12.74% of that are plastic waste. So we promote a lot of it, but one of what I want to say is there is what we call as Brantas River. So the theme is how we ensure there is a continuation of plan between river and ocean. The Brantas River is a home to 25% of our area. So river basin area of Brantas River covers 1/4 of our area and 43% of our population. And it's 320 kilometers in length. The first thing we do once we were inaugurated early last year is to promote the combating against diapers being thrown into the river. And we signed MOUs with many companies, factories along the Brantas River so that we can agree on a concerted action to battle against the pollution of the Brantas River. Finally, closing the loop, which is an initiative from the UN, Japan, ASEAN, and UCLT ASPAC, promoting circular economy. We appreciate this plan, and we are grateful that Surabaya, the capital of our province, is one of UCLG ASPAC's for ASEAN pilot cities. And we believe that the circular economy is a very strategic way to ensure that from across the waste value chain, we address this issue. We have bottled water manufacturers being responsible to also make bottled water from recycled materials. We're promoting less use of water bottles into refillable water containers. So with that, I conclude my short intervention, and thank you, UNDESA, for the opportunity. And East Java, again, as the second largest province and economy in Indonesia, is more than glad to be part of this initiative of strengthening our ocean action at subnational government. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Governor Dardak, especially also considering the time zones and your commitment to join us today. Thank you so much again, sir. Next speaker is Mr. Pedro Joaquin del Buis, the mayor of Cozumel in Mexico. Mayor del Buis, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Nayara. I would like to speak in Spanish, if you don't mind. Cozumel Island on the Mexican Caribbean has a population of around 100,000 people. Tiene aproximadamente 100,000 habitantes la isla de Cozumel. Y somos el puerto destino número 1 en toda la región y América, recibiendo aproximadamente más de 5 millones de pasajeros al año. lo que nos da junto con el turismo hotelero y de pernocta alrededor de 9 millones de personas que anualmente nos visitan. Pero además de eso, gracias a Dios, somos una de las islas mayor protegidas durante toda la región del Caribe. Tenemos 7 áreas protegidas entre las terrestres y las marítimas, lo que comprende el 75% aproximadamente de la superficie terrestre de la isla y cerca del 80% de las costas y de nuestros arrecifes. Indudablemente se ha hecho un gran trabajo ahí, principalmente por las autoridades federales, con políticas públicas implementadas a nivel nacional, que son quienes llevan la batuta de la protección al medio ambiente, pero que corresponde a las autoridades locales, como el municipio de la isla, en poder supervisar, en poder implementar, vigilar y igualmente sensibilizar a la población local de que estas prácticas, de que estas políticas públicas se lleven a cabo al pie de la letra en aras de proteger el medio ambiente de la isla. Para nosotros, el COVID-19 ha representado un nuevo reto. Sin lugar a dudas que antes de esto, el cambio climático representaba un altísimo costo, principalmente en la salud de nuestros arrecifes, que han sido duramente afectados como el resto del Caribe, principalmente por el síndrome blanco. Y ahora, pues ahora viene hacia nosotros una nueva desafío con el COVID-19. Hemos logrado contener el número de casos positivos en la isla de una muy buena manera. Hemos controlado no tener sobrecupo en la capacidad hospitalaria existente en la isla. Y gracias al trabajo coordinado principalmente con el gobierno del estado, el gobierno de Quintana Roo, la provincia de Quintana Roo, es que hemos logrado mantener el número de muertes en la isla relativamente bajo. El gran reto que tenemos hoy en día es, ya ha iniciado la apertura económica y la apertura turística, y sin lugar a dudas, pues viene el reto mayor. Cómo poder sopesar, cómo poder balancear el dinamismo económico con la protección de la salud, no solamente de nuestros ciudadanos, sino de nuestros visitantes al igual. Son grandes retos que tenemos que afrontar hoy en día y que indudablemente los gobiernos municipales y los gobiernos locales somos el primer frente de batalla ante el COVID-19 y ante todas las posibles inclemencias económicas que trae consigo esta pandemia. De mi parte, agradecer nuevamente al embajador Duarte López por la invitación, obviamente al doctor Mohamed Boudra, muchas gracias por invitarme, y pues agradecer también en México a Sergio Arredondo de parte de FENAM por su invitación a este loable foro, y agradecer a todas las autoridades de Naciones Unidas. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Mayor Dupuis, for your words. The next one, it's my pleasure to invite Major Lloyd Jones, Technical Advisor to the Mayor of Belize City. Major Jones, you have the floor, sir.
Yo quiero hablar en español y pues hablar en inglés.
Major Lloyd
Yes.
Jones?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can
there
hear
we
you
go.
now.
Excellent. Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. Let me say that the mayor of Belize City and his council are extremely delighted that there is a focus on local government in respect to the SDGs in general, but in particular SDG 14, because we are of the view that the SDGs and the targets that we have set, unless there's meaningful action at the local level, And forums like this and direct action is what is going to deliver for us the results that we desire. Belize City is the largest municipality in Belize. As you know, Belize is a very small country. It is the economic hub of Belize. And so what we see is that we find that the people are coming to Belize City looking for economic opportunity and then putting pressures on the social systems in Belize. In terms of the governance issue, unlike other countries, and I heard our colleague from Indonesia speak of the wonderful work that they are doing, we just wish we had that kind of legal authority to be able to act. But our system of government, even though we have some autonomy, a lot of the work still rests with the national government. And what we find is that it becomes more of a public sector, public officer driven kind of activity, and there's a disconnect with the local authorities that can in fact take meaningful action. Some of the challenges that we face is that the issue of garbage, in fact, it is one of the primary duties of the Belize City Council, garbage, streets, and drains. And that, as you know, is a serious problem for us ending up into our maritime spaces. Because of the land tenure situation, we're seeing that a number of people are encroaching into the mangrove forests on the periphery of Belize City. And these homes, there are no social support systems there. And so what you find is that we find a lot of garbage, insufficient sewage disposal. They're not connected to the sewer system. And whenever we have these rain events, all of that garbage and fecal matter flows out to our maritime spaces. So the Belize City Council now is looking at a project for what is called the Crewman Water Catchment Lagoon to voluntarily relocate people out of that lagoon, which is a natural water catchment. And because of the encroachment and the filling in of that, that area, we find a lot of localized flooding whenever there are heavy rains in the city. And then that flooding flushes out all of that debris into the maritime spaces. The Belize City Council does not have any legal authority in the maritime spaces. That is taken care of by the Coastal Zone Management Authority, and there is an integrated Coastal Zone Management Plan. The Port Authority takes care of the international shipping. The Fisheries Department takes care of the fisheries and the maritime resources. And so the Belize City Council is left only to deal with the issues on the land side of it. In terms of the impact of COVID-19, we fear that as the economy contracts, and if it is a sustained contraction leading into a depression, we are going to see a great deal more pressure placed on the maritime resources. Currently, the diet is more of a diet on imported goods, processed foods. That has been curtailed because of the economic decline, the challenges of tourism and the decline of foreign exchange to purchase those foreign goods. People are now going back to the traditional diet. And we fear that that is going to create some additional burdens on our fisheries if it is not managed properly. Our economy, like much of the Caribbean, is dependent heavily on tourism. That is in a tailspin. And so now there are calls for people to turn to agriculture. Again, when you look at the impacts of agriculture, that takes place a little bit further inland. But all of the runoffs that passes through Belize City, the Belize River and the Halover Creek onto and into the sea can in fact pose a heightened risk to, and threatens to undermine all the work that we have done in terms of protecting our maritime spaces as agricultural productivity increases. And also deforestation, because now you're talking about increased demand for food, which means the requirement for more land, which means the risk of deforestation and all that brings with it. So as the economy recalibrates, I think we have to be mindful of our commitments under SDG 14 and strike a balance between meeting the needs of our people and at the same time trying to ensure that in trying to meet those needs, we're not creating more long-term harm to our maritime spaces. In terms of our fisheries and our coral reefs and the protection thereof, the Commonwealth has an extremely wonderful program where they're using satellite technology to monitor our coral reefs for degradation and looking at fishery stock and population. And when they detect that there might be some challenges, that information is passed to member countries who then have an obligation to respond in a manner that they think best in order to address those issues that may arise. In terms of the local direct climate action, what we find is that there is a lag between the impacts and the climate action, again, because of our particular governance arrangements. So when it comes to legislative adjustments, those are more difficult because those require, so the City Council would propose a bylaw, and then that has to go to the National Assembly for Parliament to approve it. And that can be a challenge, particularly when you have a different party at the national level versus one at the local level. And you know how politics is sometimes. So the approach of the Belize City Council is to look at entering into MOUs with the various partners that are responsible primarily to drive SDG 14, the Fisheries Department, with the Coastal Zone Management, with the Port Authority, and to see how we can take part in that direct action in the municipality of Belize City to help with those issues. And then they've looked at some other issues in terms of to prevent the debris from flowing into the sea. They're replacing manhole covers now with grated manhole covers. Debris do not flow easily. We have about 6 miles within Belize City.
I do apologize, Mr. Jones. We'll need to ask you to wrap up. Okay. Apologies for that.
No problem at all. We're looking to see how we could use some adjustments to our infrastructure to prevent debris from flowing out into the oceans, and then working with our partners in the central water quality test along the Harlover Creek, which is about a 6 mile waterway that leads into the sea. So that's where we are in terms of our activities related to SDG 14.
Thank you very much, Major Jones, and apologies again for interrupting you. We are now starting our second panel, focusing on keeping the momentum for ocean action, local and regional governments' leadership in the COVID-19 era. I would like now to hand over the moderation to Mr. Greg Munro, Secretary General of the Commonwealth Local Governments Forum. Mr. Munro, over to you, and I will invite you to be very strict with our panelists. We need to be very strict with time. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Nada. So, as Nada said, this is about keeping the momentum for ocean action, and the key questions being, what are the expectations and ambitions? What are the good strategies for engagement? And how do we mobilize commitments from local and regional government? So we have 4 speakers, and as Nada said, we need to be very strict on the time. We only have 20 minutes. So please limit yourself to 5 minutes and preferably less than 5 minutes. So without further ado, can I hand over to Ms. Birgitta List-Leimer, who's the Director of Water Resources, Stockholm International Water Institute.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for giving me the chance to speak here. I'm not a representative. Sorry about that. I'm not a representative of the local government, but very interested to hear all the inputs provided. I am here to speak about the need to address ocean sustainability from source to sea and the important role that local and regional governments play in doing so. because as we know, SDG 14 is not the business of the ocean community. It's and not coastal municipalities either. It's really all of our business. And I don't have to reiterate the extent of the impacts that we see in our ocean as a result of activities that take place on land and along rivers further upstream from the coast. What makes these things challenging to address is a combination of many factors. One being they are the result of activities that take place upstream from where the impacts are felt often. And another being they're often a result of cumulative impacts where no one actor is solely responsible. So addressing this requires coordination between upstream and downstream actors and cooperation across sectors when it comes to governance, operations, practices, measures, and finance. And the role of regional and local governments in doing this is critical. It's at this level many critical decisions are taken that ultimately determine the pressure our communities pose on the ocean. They're responsible for many of the services that reduces our impact on the oceans, the wastewater, solid waste, etc. And it's also here a lot of the responsibility lies for adapting to the negative impacts of sea level rise, coastal erosion, deteriorating ocean health, etc. So let's see. Now maybe we can go to the next slide. So in most places, we have challenges to handle these linkages between land and sea. Even though the scientific knowledge may exist, it's not necessarily known to decision makers. And at other times, governance systems are too fragmented between administrative boundaries and between sectors. I think the example we just heard from Belize also was interesting in relation to that. And I thought it was quite innovative, the signing of an MOU between different sectors to overcome some of these things. So even if we know the problem and what causes them, we do not always have the tools to address them in an effective way. There could be a limited understanding of the extent of negative impacts that a certain land-based activity contributes to, or limited financing or capacity to address them, or even limited incentives. Like sometimes, why should we invest in measures that will primarily benefit downstream regions or downstream municipalities, maybe far from the farm or industry municipality or region that are contributing to the negative impacts? When making decisions about development activities at local level, in mountain areas and along rivers, we must of course consider how these decisions will affect the coasts and oceans downstream. You can switch to the next slide. Applying a source to sea approach to planning and management, it influences the system boundary, the problem definition, and it complements traditional management regimes such as IWM or ecosystem-based management that are sometimes the management regimes that are normally applied at local level. By engaging stakeholders necessary to understand causes and design solutions that bring system-wide benefits from source to sea. And this goes beyond coastal municipalities, as pointed out by Mr. Dardak here from East Java. These are upstream, downstream issues concerning also municipalities located further upstream in the river basin. And taking such a broader look can also provide a coordination between up and downstream municipalities with opportunity for efficiency gains when measures and investments are coordinated at regional scale. It also can influence cost-benefit assessments of planned investments if you're able to factor in economic gains from downstream sectors through improved environmental conditions or improved tourism opportunities and similar. You can change the slide. So just to remind ourselves, there's a number of flows that connect land and rivers to the sea, not only pollution, which is what we often discuss, but also water, sediment, biota, such as fish. And these flows influence the ecosystem services that the ocean is able to provide and that we all depend upon. Change slide. So the Ocean Conference and the process leading up to it now provides a real opportunity to make SDG 14 everybody's business. We need to coordinate our efforts to implement the SDGs to be able to achieve SDG 14. That has been pointed out many times. And regional and local governments, they play a key part in doing that because they are the ones doing more of the legwork when it comes to implementation sometimes. And this is the work that the action platform for source-to-sea management was created for, that I am also representing here. That this is a multi-stakeholder partnership created to increase implementation to address these source-to-sea linkages that I have been talking about, but also to exchange knowledge and learn from good experiences and mobilize stronger policy and financial commitment to prioritize them. So last slide, we can go to the next slide. So I would like to invite you all to sign this open letter that was launched by the Source-to-Sea platform on World Ocean Day, really calling for more coordinated action. It's open for signatures until the Ocean Conference takes place. So I would really like to invite also regional and local governments to join us in the work to accelerate the development and implementation of a more coordinated, well-informed, balanced trajectory from the ocean, from source to sea. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Can I call on Mr. Sergio Graf, who's the Secretary for Environment from Mexico?
Buenos días a todas y a todos. Muchas gracias por la invitación. En México, un país como México, donde el litoral tiene aproximadamente, abarca el territorio de 15 estados del país, es muy importante desarrollar esquemas colaborativos. Nosotros tenemos un litoral en el Pacífico, en el Atlántico y en el Caribe, y es fundamental desarrollar esquemas colaborativos entre los gobiernos subnacionales. Para eso, en el marco de la Conferencia Nacional de Gobernadores, hemos integrado la Comisión de Medio Ambiente, Recursos Hídricos y Cambio Climático, de la cual Jalisco preside en este momento, donde tenemos una agenda con 3 grandes temas que son cambio climático, biodiversidad y manejo de cuencas y recursos hídricos, y hemos firmado la Alianza de Gobernadores por el Clima. Esta alianza busca ampliar la ambición y responsabilizarnos de las necesidades de una descarbonización continua y establecer presupuestos de carbono bajo un enfoque descentralizado. Por otra parte, 8 estados del país hemos impulsado, estamos impulsando impuestos ambientales, básicamente un impuesto al carbono, para propiciar esta estrategia de descarbonización. Para Jalisco, que tenemos 300 kilómetros de litoral y las cuencas hidrográficas que lo conforman, cubren aproximadamente 3 millones de hectáreas. Esto nos obliga a tener una gran responsabilidad sobre lo que hacemos en nuestro territorio en relación al mantenimiento de la diversidad biológica y la conservación de los océanos y las zonas costeras. Para eso estamos impulsando el ordenamiento ecológico del territorio y de las ciudades del litoral para asegurar que el desarrollo económico de la zona no tenga un incremento en los impactos sobre los ecosistemas costeros y marinos. Estamos impulsando un manejo sustentable de las cuencas hidrográficas, especialmente con una política muy agresiva de lucha contra la deforestación y impulsando una agricultura más sustentable. Tenemos que disminuir la generación de nitratos y fosfatos en la agricultura para disminuir la presión sobre los ecosistemas oceánicos. Esa es una medida que debe de ser impulsada en todo el planeta, ya que es uno de los factores más críticos de degradación de los océanos. Estamos impulsando una política de adaptación basada en ecosistemas para el sector turístico. El sector turístico en Jalisco y en todo México es un sector muy pujante que da ingresos y divisas al país y al Estado, y es muy importante que cambiemos el enfoque de atención en esta actividad, sobre todo en una perspectiva de reactivación económica y que nos permite, junto con estos centros de desarrollo turístico y el desarrollo de las ciudades, también desarrollar una economía circular que nos permita reducir el impacto del manejo inadecuado de los residuos sólidos y que están generando problemas de contaminación. Jalisco ya emitió su ley de manejo y regulación de bolsas plásticas para disminuir esta presión. En este contexto de reactivación del COVID, es muy importante tomar en cuenta que la producción primaria del litoral es fundamental para la economía, pero también para la conservación de los océanos. Y es en esta zona donde tenemos que fortalecer la transversalidad de las políticas públicas del sector agropecuario y turístico con las políticas ambientales y sobre todo fortalecer las capacidades de los gobiernos locales, los municipios, también a través de procesos asociativos que les permita actuar en un proceso de largo plazo en el territorio. Y que esto derive, y eso es fundamental, en una condición de mejora de la calidad de vida de las comunidades locales, buscando un crecimiento económico más justo y buscando proyectos de desarrollo sostenible con estas comunidades que son los principales poseedores de los recursos naturales en el litoral. De esta manera, estamos impulsando la conformación de una red de áreas naturales protegidas del litoral, principalmente los humedales costeros, para que las comunidades puedan realizar todas sus actividades. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Can we go to, so Miss Joana Balsamao is a city councillor from the City Council of Cascais in Portugal. Or, sorry, you've put up Lisa, there we go. Councillor, over to you.
Hello. Good afternoon from Cascais. It was with much dismay that I saw the 31st of May and the 1st of June slip by my calendar, the 2 days where Cascais would host a major side event from the ocean conferences in Lisbon. We would be hosting the UN Business Forum for Ocean Sustainability. This would have been and will be in the future a major opportunity to convene important stakeholders, such as the private sector. We were also preparing within this segment an interesting event for local authorities. But I was asked to comment on what Cascais as a local authority is doing for local policy regarding the oceans. We are very much focused on 3 issues. One is science. And besides the obvious and more common coastal water quality monitoring, we're conducting and almost finishing what we call a coastal GIS system, whereby we're mapping all the different ecosystems along our coastline. I forgot to mention that Cascais is this map behind me, 200,000 inhabitants, 32 kilometers of very beautiful coastline, highly touristic, or that was the case before COVID. A unfortunately shrinking fishing industry. Yes, and a highly pleasant place for living. We have many challenges, and I will get to those in a second. So yes, so we're covering all the seabed to identify the different biotopes and ecosystems. We've carried out, this was mentioned also here today, it's a boring study, it's legal and administrative study that indicates where along our coastline do we as a municipality have competencies or jurisdiction, because it's not clear. And in Portuguese coastline, sometimes you have as many as 9 ministries holding different kinds of competencies to different distances along the coastline. So it was really important for us as a municipality to know exactly, what is a no-go zone, where can we go, what are clearly our competencies along our very own coastline. We are carrying out an academic project to determine which algae species will be growing better in so we can restore our seabeds, and this is a win-win-win situation, as we all know. So for carbon absorption, for biodiversity, for fishing, etc. And we're almost finished with a study that is measuring the GDP of our coastline. This is important. The preliminary results have shown us, for example, that I&D is only a really, really small fraction of what we have here so far, whereas tourism and hotels is a huge big chunk. And we were carrying out a study about the worth of the natural capital of our coastline. So this is the science part. We need to gather science and data so that we know where to go action-wise. We have the first local municipal marine protected area in the country. We have ongoing many projects regarding marine litter, ocean literacy, innovation, working with the fishermen, the local fishing community. Yeah, so we're developing other systems of marking their buoys. Instead of using plastic, we're going to use cork, for example. And then we have a couple of quite expensive, heavy projects going on regarding streams, water streams. There's 9 water streams going from north to south in our little rectangle, and these are extremely important. They've been forgotten, and they're a source of pollution. If they're not naturalized or renaturalized, we will never solve this issue. And we're retrofitting a big building that is the place where the fishing community used to bring the products at the end of a night's fishing and to weigh, to sell, etc. And then there's the governance. And for governance, we created a municipal ocean council with, okay, I will wrap up. So this is the governance. You asked us about challenges, and challenges are enforcement. Enforcement is difficult. Financing, especially now with COVID in the background. And integration, this has been mentioned also here. So it's not just upstream, downstream, but it's also with neighbors. And I would like to talk about how we can engage the local and regional governments in the upcoming Oceans Conference. This was a question that was asked. Is now the moment? I'll be very brief. Okay, so how to engage and how to motivate local and regional authorities for commitments and in this movement. First of all, it's really important just to acknowledge, the UN must acknowledge clearly the role of local and regional governments as the grounds where sustainability can be won or lost. This is an important part. Another part is get us together so we can discuss common challenges, and this will make us feel part of a global movement, or we can share universal languages. Thirdly and lastly, please help us demonstrate that the green-blue road that Peter Thompson mentioned is actually win-win, because it might be obvious for me, but it's not obvious for everyone in my executive. And this is more important now than ever because of COVID. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, can I go to Lisa Helps, who's the Mayor of Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Mayor, over to you.
Great, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm here from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. We are the capital city of British Columbia, and we are located on a small island in the Pacific Ocean. I'm going to focus on the questions that we were asked, the first 2 questions. The first about expectations and ambitions from local governments leading up to the UN Ocean Conference. As the previous speaker said, I think there's really a lot that the UN can learn from local governments about SDG 14. So I would say to listen to and build on our successes, our challenges, and the approaches that we're already taking. I think if you got all of the world's ocean cities together, you'd see that we have almost all of the solutions that are needed to achieve SDG 14. And I think there's a real opportunity to draw on our experience and our wisdom and to learn from us, and also create a fora for us to learn from each other. One particular strategy, and I'm not sure if this was planned or not, is maybe as a side part of the conference or as part of the conference itself to have something like a Mayor's Ocean Summit. So mayors of ocean cities that are working on these challenges that are already committed to learn from each other. The other thing that's really important, and I just want to talk very briefly about our strategy here. This is called Victoria 3.0. It's our economic action plan to recover from COVID, and it's focused in a large degree on the blue economy and on SDG 14. So I think that's an oft overlooked opportunity to engage local governments based on the local economies that we're trying to create to achieve a blue economy framework in SDG 14. So when we think about local governments, we think about sewage and garbage and managing the waterfronts and all of the things that others have talked about, and those are all true. I also think there's a huge opportunity to learn from local governments about the local economic development that we're doing that relates directly to achieving the blue economy framework and SDG 14. As Ambassador Thompson said at the beginning, if we're going to achieve all of the things we need to, the role of science and innovation should not be underestimated. And science and innovation obviously happen all over the world, but they're concentrated, innovations concentrated in cities. And so, for example, as part of this plan, Victoria 3.0, I'll flash it up again there. We've engaged with local companies who are working towards low carbon prosperity, who are working towards blue economy solutions, and they're creating high paying jobs at the same time as solving the problems that we all need to solve. So I really think focusing on local governments as economic development agents, I guess, is one way of putting it. And then again, bringing us together from around the world, mayors and councillors in ocean cities working on a blue economy so that we can learn not only about policies and practice, but also what we can do as local governments to learn from and partner with the private sector. And it's really amazing. I do think before COVID hit, we were turning the tide globally to understand that climate change is a massive problem. And as others have said on this call this morning, now is an opportunity, and it shouldn't be lost to create that blue-green recovery. And I think that cities and our local economies have something to contribute. So I do hope that the UN Ocean Conference will be held and that we'll all be able to gather together in person. And I think that that local governments have a lot to offer, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So can I, because we're running out of time and we do need time for discussion, can I hand back to Nada Chavez to facilitate the next session for discussion?
Thank you very much, Greg, and thanks to all panelists. So we still have one session in our webinar, and with many thanks to UCLG, I know I was informed that we can go a little bit over time, but just a little bit. When we opened the registration for this webinar, we also invited several, the interested ones to register their interest to make short interventions, and we managed to identify a few of you. Unfortunately, we were not able to accommodate all those who signed up. My invitation to all of you, we had said 2 minutes, but I will need you to be really, really concise and speak for 1 minute. I know if you have longer interventions, you will be able to send to the set, and we will make sure that those are featured in the summary of this webinar that we will be preparing. So I will invite the speakers to be really good partners, and so we can accommodate everybody. So we'll start. I will mention the 3 names in order. So the first one will be Mrs. Kobe Brand from Ickley, South Africa, followed by Mrs. Isabel Torres de Noronha from Future Ocean Alliance in Portugal, and then Mr. Terence Patrick Long from ISTC in Canada. So Mrs. Brand, you have the floor and you have 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In 1 minute, I just want to say that thank you very much to the mayors and the governors that are part of this session and for putting it so extremely well. Belize City, you've highlighted the problems and the challenges of multi-level governance, but also the necessity of solving these problems in a very practical way. I think this is an extremely important session that we are coming together with the United Nations through UCLG. Thank you very much, UCLG, and through the Global Taskforce. We want the United Nations to hear clearly that we as local governments and local government networks are standing with you. We need to make this Oceans Conference count, and we need to make it change the curve that we are currently on. And we need to also recognize that more and more cities, coastal cities, are growing faster than any other cities in the world. People are naturally flocking to the coast. And it's here that we will have to face the challenges of all three Rio Conventions and so much more. I will stop there. Thank you very much for being part of this event. And ICLEI stands with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Brand, for keeping also the time. Next, I have Ms. Isabel Torres de Noronha, followed by Mr. Terence Patrick Long, and then Mrs. Marlise Araújo from Brazil. So, Ms. Noronha, you have the floor in 1 minute.
Hello, can you hear me? Thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you. So I have pasted the title of the call for action of Future Ocean Alliance towards a coordinated framework to address the impacts of climate change and the Sustainable Development Goals, of which SDG on ocean is key. It happens that coastal habitats are part inland and part at sea. We call it the continuum territory between land and sea. You know, we have estuaries, we have dunes and cliffs, and all these provide ecosystem services that are the key for the blue economy. The blue economy involves on cities a lot of other SDGs, including, you know, the right for proper working situations. And so this has been launched at the plenary of mayors of the regional climate week of Latin America and the Caribbean, has been subscribed also by UCLG Africa, among many other cities. And the key issue is that in spite of not having competencies, cities can develop custodianship of coastal marine resources, the one nearby, so that they can benefit for the ecosystem services. They need to develop capacities for these local and regional authorities to address vulnerabilities, impacts, and seize opportunities for this economy and also for biodiversity. And on this, it has been said many times, it is key to promote integrated coastal management that needs to mainstream adaptation and mitigation measures based on ecosystem-based approaches and nature-based solutions, so that we can synergize climate action and biodiversity promotion. You are invited later on to see this call for action, and if you wish to subscribe and work with us on implementation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Noronha. Please do paste the link to information on the chat box so others can follow the information. So I have next Mr. Terence Patrick Long, followed by Mrs. Marlise Araújo from Brazil, and then Mr. Charles Nuren from Stakeholder Forum for Sustainable Future. So Mr. Long, you have the floor.
For the sake of time, I will send you my written speech when we're done here. Very quick synopsis. Welcome everybody, I hope you're all fine. We are developing a Science and Technology Innovative Center in Cape Breton in Canada to look at the SDG targets and figure out different ways we can help cities, governments, and Indigenous and First Nations look at some of their SDG targets. We invite you to be partners, associated partners, to be end users of the center, to give us some of your problems so we can try to develop solutions. In closing, I would just like to respond to the Ambassador Thompson's remarks. I basically want to say the greatest threat to the ocean is the sea dump chemical and conventional weapons that have been decaying for over 100 years in our waters all around the globe. They create dead zones, they kill and bleach corals, they deposit as large amounts of nitrogen and carbon to the water, and they basically threaten every target for SDG 13 and SDG 14. Until we have an international summit to address these underwater munitions and look at it from the United Nations and the Chemical Weapons Convention, we will not be able to address this. Basically, in short, in closing, the OPCW says, leave the weapons there, they can't hurt you. The UN says the weapons are silent killers, point source emitters of pollution, for which they are. So we need to stop and find out what are they. Do we leave the munitions there to impact the SDGs, or do we pull them out of the water? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Long. So next, Ms. Marlise Araújo from Brazil, followed by Mr. Charles Nuhan, followed by Mrs. Arabelle Bentley from Chemo International, UK. Marlise?
Hello, good morning, everybody. Could you hear me? Okay, are you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. You can go.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm from Brazil. Brazil is a country continental with 100 kilometers of coastline with a lot of relevant hotspots. And we have a historic development of ignorance for the ocean importance. So despite several programs, government programs, we have necessity to enhance this understanding, the people's understanding to the ecosystem's service relevance. So at this time, I think that we think that our major challenge is that for achieving the 14 SDG 14 goals is motivate and mobilize a significant proportion of population throughout the country and stimulate the values and effective actions. So why we think that this possibility is to support the non-governmental organization to establish the Popular Communication Network, a series of local and regional forums to disseminate the traditional and scientific knowledge related with the SDG 14, improve the dialogue with the Government Commission, and strengthen and motivate youth and citizens willing to take care of what belongs to all. Thank you.
Thank you, obrigada Marlise. So next one, Mr. Charles Nuhan, followed by Arabelle Bentley, and followed by Kekashan Basur from Green Hope Foundation, Canada. Charles, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Niara. I've reduced my statement, so it should be no more than a minute, and I'll send the full one as promised. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I speak on behalf of the Global Partnership for Ocean Wave Energy Technology and other partners who share common objectives with regard to the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Aspirations of vulnerable communities. I would also like to point out that the following message are coordinated and passed by Ocean Energy Europe and the ocean energy sector. To transition from expensive and polluting fossil fuels to zero emissions wind, solar, ocean wave and tidal, and battery storage technology offer the most effective innovations by which to meet the challenges of COVID-19 and climate change. These local renewable resources have the potential to cover the total electricity needs of small islands and similar coastal communities while creating economic activity, including new skilled jobs and sustainable revenue streams for local communities. A fully engaged and adequately funded multi-stakeholder-led energy transition has the potential to eliminate energy poverty, reduce coastal runoff pollution by electrifying land and marine transport, and to produce excess electricity to desalinate water locally for water-stressed communities, including their industrial, tourism, and agricultural sectors. Now, more than ever, it's the time for all nations, all stakeholders, to embrace the need to invest in and accelerate a global energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles, very much. Next one, Mrs. Arabelle Bentley from Chemo International, UK, followed by Kekashan Basu and Mr. Masanori Kobayashi from Japan. Ms. Bentley, you have the floor.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll also submit my my long statement and keep this very short. I'm sorry I haven't got the camera on. First of all, thank you very much for inviting Chemo to participate in this webinar and in this session. The coronavirus has devastated lives, destroyed families, and turned the world upside down, but it has also presented the world with an opportunity to rebuild the global economy and health system in a more resilient way, with green and blue economy at the heart. Private and public sector, businesses, authorities and citizens are more receptive now to investment in a clean and healthy environment than before the pandemic. Chemo believes that the key to sustained and sustainable change that supports SDG 14 is through implementation of a collaborative, bottom-up approach that's driven by local and regional authorities and involves a diverse range of stakeholders working together in public-private partnerships or green deals to drive economic development. Scaling up of simple, effective initiatives, such as Chemo's own Fishing for Litter project that removes from the sea plastic litter from land and sea-based sources, can be adopted easily by local and regional authorities at low cost and with low administrative burden. Such initiatives not only instigate positive and sustained behavioural change in fishers and the fishing industry, they also bring a sense of cohesion as local and regional authorities work together to drive solutions towards the achievement of SDG 14 and to be champions of blue-green growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bentley. So we have two more, Mrs. Kekashan Basu from Green Hope Foundation, Canada. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Your Excellencies, good morning from Toronto, Canada. My name is Kekasha. I'm the founder-president of social innovation enterprise Green Hope Foundation, which works on engaging coastal communities in the conservation and regeneration of mangrove ecosystems in multiple countries in the Middle East, Suriname, Indonesia, and in the Sundarbans, which are the world's largest mangrove forests, much of which have been decimated by the recent cyclone Amphan. Your Excellencies, the situation on the ground is very grave. 67% of global mangroves have been lost in the past century due to human impact, threatening the livelihoods of these coastal communities, as well as exposing them to sea storms, apart from the destruction of the rich flora and fauna that thrive in these ecosystems. So as a build-up to the UN Ocean Conference, my appeal to local and regional governments is to immediately ban single-use plastics, educate these coastal communities on better waste recycling procedures to stop pollution that leads to ocean acidification and destruction of mangroves, and provide them the access to microfinance to support their artisanal fishing practices, access to markets, and build localized economies. Lastly, SDG 14 is linked to all the other goals, and governments need to invest in healthcare, education, storm shelters, in addition to replanting and regeneration of these depleted mangroves so as to build disaster resilience and enhance ocean oxygenation. So we need global support for local action now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Basu. And finally, Mr. Masanori Kobayashi, Ocean Policy Research Institute of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation in Japan. Mr. Kobayashi, do we have you on the call?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Masanori, and I'm very pleased and very much impressed with the leadership role demonstrated by all the speakers who I listened to today. Our research institute has been collaborating with the local government in promoting effective collaborations for sustainable conservation and management of coastal and marine resources. And we see a number of successful factors that I think are very useful to share. And the good practice sharing and the policy dialogue like this would really inspire us and help replicating the successful initiatives. So I hope that our institute can contribute to the successful outcome of the forthcoming UN Second Ocean Conference. And we really look forward to promoting collaboration with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kobayashi. And I'm really sorry for the interpreters that this has been very challenging on you, but thank you so much for all the efforts. We are now moving to the closing remarks of this event. And I would, we have two interventions to close, and I will invite them to be very short with around 2 minutes. First, let me invite Ms. Emilia Saiz, Secretary General from United Cities and Local Governments, for your closing remarks, and then I will be inviting Ambassador Thompson, and we will be closing the call. Emilia, please, you do have the floor.
Thank you very much, Nayara. Thank you very much, UNDESA, for your partnership. Thank you, colleagues of the Global Task Force, but above all, thank you, President Budra, and thank you for all the mayors' inputs in this important dialogue. I cannot stress enough how important this dialogue is for us. is critical because of two things. It's critical because it's critical to the planet. We are dealing with a very big challenge, and is that our large constituency is not all aware of how critical their role can be here. You have heard many coastal cities talking today, but our challenge is to bring it to other cities that are not coastal and to other territories, local and regional governments. And the second reason why it is very, very important is because we do need this structural dialogue between the United Nations, its special envoys and representatives, and our constituency to provide our approach, our vision, and our support of a strong multilateral system. From everything that has been said today, and I will not repeat it all because we don't have time, but also because they've been able to share it much better than I do, there are 4 things that come out very, very strongly that I think we need to build on as a constituency, and I'm sure that CLGF Secretary General Greg Monroe, but also the director of ICLEI and our Secretary General of UCLG ASPAC will very much agree with me on. Well, we need to promote dialogue between the different spheres of government. It is extremely critical, and almost all the local and regional leaders have highlighted this. Then second, we need to also ensure that we fulfill a very critical role that local and regional governments play, which is awareness raising. We need to make sure that our constituency knows what we can mean to this agenda, but also that our communities, that the citizens see the link between the river and the ocean, the link between everything we do and this economy. And then thirdly, we need to change our perception of the economy and promote different types of economy, circular economy, a blue economy. We are convinced that we need to build on a new pact for nature and change our relationship. Many of the mayors that have been here today consider themselves not only mayors of the citizens, but also mayors of the territory. So I will leave it there with our commitment to continue working with you. We are easy to find, and we are ready to contribute to this multilateral system and the global agendas. Let us follow mayors' help, advice, and make sure that we learn from each other. Thank you so much also for the very rich exchange in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emilia, for that. And now, finally, Ambassador Thompson, for your final remarks, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Time is up, so I'll be very brief. I've listened with great interest, and those that are submitting their speeches on such subjects as wave energy and dumping of munitions, I commend them to everybody to have a read of them because they're very important subjects. And Dessa, I'm sure I can speak on your behalf, will be collating everything that we have discussed here, and we'll be ensuring as we proceed towards the UN Ocean Conference that regional and local governments are part of the preparation and indeed are part of the deliberations at the conference itself. So I think this webinar has proved the worth of that. Changes are constant. And we're going through immense changes at the moment. Some of the speakers were talking about the tourism industry before. We just don't know what sort of changes will occur after the pandemic. It won't be the same. There is no such thing as normal, and you can't go back in time. So changes are constant. Let's make the change a positive one for us all, as has been discussed during this webinar. We've got to turn this in a positive direction, i.e. the sustainable direction, because we were on a terminal path before, so we don't want that so-called normal. The other thing that I'd say is that for the cities involved, I love that suggestion from the Mayor of Victoria that there be some sort of Mayor's Summit in relation to the UN Ocean Conference. It's a great idea. I think we should try and develop that in some way. Remembering that as part of all the changes going on, conferencing will change as well. We've learned so much in the virtual sphere while this pandemic has been on. So and look at the virtual ocean dialogues, which we held during the first week of June. you know, which had participation of over 800,000 people. You know, you can't fit that many people into an actual conference venue. So I think one of the things we're learning is that we will see hybrid conferencing in the future, where you're combining actual representation, the people that have to be there, with virtual participation being so much broader than it used to be. And that's great because it's democratization. So look, I know we're out of time. There's so much I want to discuss with you guys in local government. It's my old field. It's where I came from back in the 1970s, rural development in my case. But you will be part of the UN Ocean Conference, so I look forward to working with you on that. And whether you're there in actual, as I will be, or in virtual presence, I'll see you in Lisbon.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Thompson. So we are reaching the end of our program. Thanks very much to all of you who stayed until now. Also, a huge thanks to our panelists, to our speakers, to our participants. A huge thanks to our interpreters. It's really great to be able to have this service also provided during the call. And on behalf of UN DESA, I want to extend our appreciation and thanks to UCLG and the Global Task Force for the partnership and for supporting in hosting and making this call possible. And please do keep in touch, and we will be sharing the links, the reports, the summary. This will all be online, and this conversation will continue. The webinar is now closed. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nayara. Very well done. Congratulations to all, and thanks to all. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. See you soon again.
Bye. Bye.